Hi everyone, it's Ms. Kelly from the Wakanda Area Library to show you today what we're doing with this month's Art to Go kit. So this month you guys will be making a felt cactus, and inside your kit you're going to find a pre-cut little cactus. There are going to be different colors and different shapes and different styles, so this is just what I'm going to use for this demonstration. Some stuffing, a needle, a flower, some little beads, some thread, a pot, and some rocks to fill up your little pot when you're all done. You're gonna need some scissors, a little bit of glue, and a pencil or a chopstick or something, because it's gonna help, because we're gonna have to push the stuffing all the way up into all these corners here. So that'll be really helpful to have that. Also, make sure you hang on to your needle, because there's going to be a lot of other sewing projects or projects coming up that you could use it, or you could always use it for crafts on your own. So I'm going to move this stuff aside. So step one is to thread your needle. I gave you all a pretty good amount of thread. You might not even need it all. Sewing with a really big, long piece of thread could be tricky. So what you can do is you can measure your whole length of thread and cut it in half, and just use half of it at a time. It's very easy for it to get tangled if you're trying to pull a long piece of string through. I find I like a little bit of a shorter one. So take your needle off of your card here. I've taped it on so you're not going to poke yourself. It's a real needle. It's sharp. Be careful. All right. Save this little card. You can put it back on when you're done. All right. And then you are going to thread your needle. Like I said, you could cut your thread in half. Oops. Let's see. Cut that in half. Right. And also, actually, it really helps to thread your needle when you do have a fresh cut at the end. You can even kind of twist it really tight like that to get that through this. So you'll thread your needle through. And then I've got one I've done already over here. I threaded it through. So you see I made it shorter, so it's not going to be really long to deal with. Okay, and then you're going to match those two ends up. And then you're just going to do a small tie here. It doesn't have to do a knot. You're just going to do one little loop. This is just going to prevent the thread from pulling all the way through the felt when you're sewing. So you just make a little, and don't worry about if you get a little long tail on the end there. We're going to cut that off when you're done. Okay, so you're going to take your cactus and you have two pieces, and just make sure that they're lined up really well. Okay, and that's going to be the most important part when you're sewing. Make sure you keep them lined up. Okay, and you're going to start down here at one of the bottom corners, and you're going to take your needle and you're going to poke up from the bottom so you can see. So you're not going to poke, because if you go this way, you could poke yourself in the finger. But if you come this way, you can see. You're not going to poke yourself. You can watch carefully, see where it's coming through. Right? And it's a pretty sharp needle. It should come through pretty easily. You're going to pull it all the way through. Okay? I'm going to show you two different kinds of ways you can sew if you want. You don't have to be a seamstress or really good at sewing to do this. I'm not. I just enjoy making projects like this. So you can just go around the outside and look again. Remember, just watch where that needle's coming through. And then pull it all the way up like this. And then just curve around the outside and come up the bottom. See what I mean? If it was really long, it's very easy to get it tangled. But make sure you pull it all the way through. Okay, so then you go and just trying to keep them about the same distance apart, and you want each stitch to be about the same distance from each other and to be about the same distance from the edge. So if you go really close to the edge, it's not going to hold it together. So you just come on in like this. And look, you're going to put it in just a little bit. If it's not in the right spot, you can pull it out. Felt will kind of heal itself. You don't have to worry about that hole when it'll disappear. You can keep going like this. So that's one way you can sew. You could just keep doing that all the way around, or you could do this. You're going to point down. You have to be careful now. Watch, so you're not going to poke yourself. You go down, pull it all the way through. Make sure you get it snug like this. And then you're going to come back up. You can look on the other side if you want. You can turn it over this way every time and see. Make sure you're not too close to the edge. You have to check both sides. And then you're going to pull it up. And then you're going to push it down again. So it's going to give you a different look. So when you're doing this way, you're going to get these outside wraps around like this, or you're going to do just little stitches around. Either way, it will look cute. It's fun. It will serve the same purpose. Just make sure when you're sewing, you go slow. I don't want you to poke yourself in your fingers. It hurts. It's a sharp little needle. Okay, so gently up and then down. And you're just gonna try and stay, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's cute little felt cactus. So if it's a little imperfect, it looks even cuter. But like I said, try and keep the stitches about the same distance apart from each other and from the edge. Or if you're going around the edge, same thing. I've got one here that I've already gone all the way around. I just chose this stitch. I did the in and out stitch all the way around. So and I've gotten all the way to the bottom of my cactus. So we sewed all the way around and I left the bottom open. So I'm gonna leave this hanging here. Before I seal the bottom of my cactus, I'm gonna open it and stuff it. So you're gonna take your stuffing and you're gonna start putting it in. This is where you might need a pencil or a chopstick if you have something to push it in with. It's kind of a small opening. And it's gonna take more than you think. You know, I gave you a crazy amount of stuffing, probably more than you need. Again, repurpose it, make another project. Okay, just stuff it in there. Now, before I even bother with the chopstick or the pencil, just get as much as you can in there by hand. But you see there's got a lot of them are gonna either have, you know, a couple little bump outs or just at least one. So you'll all have some of this to do. So push it in with your finger as far as you can. And then you're gonna take your pencil or your chopstick and you're gonna push it all the way into all those little areas. You need to push as much in there as you want. I like it, I'm gonna put a lot in there so it'll stay kind of stiff. I don't want it to be floppy. So you can feel. That's the trickiest part though, just making sure you push it all the way into those little areas. It actually takes quite a bit of stuffing to get it all the way in there so you can see it's pretty full. So then I'll go ahead and I'll fill in the rest. So as I said, you just put some in and get it ready and then push it out into those little areas. And once those are full, then you can finish filling the rest of the cactus. All right. And I was pretty excited about making these cactuses because I know that this cactus will survive in my house no matter how little I water it. Which is one of my biggest problems with plants around my house. All right. So get it filled all the way up. Like I said, as much as you want, kind of work it around so it gets a nice shape. It's going to be kind of flat. You don't want it to be really too fat because then it'll get a little distorted in shape. So you don't want to put too much in there. So just put a little bit more in there. You're gonna have to leave yourself a little room on the end so you could still pinch that together and sew it like you did the rest of it. So once it's filled up, I think you need just a little bit more stuffing in there. All right. And now when you're ready to sew it up, if you didn't have a little left over, just get your needle and thread ready again. You can start a new one. Anytime you run out, you're just gonna cut it and tie it off and you can just add a new piece on. All right, you just start sewing again. So like if you get halfway through and you find out you're not gonna have enough thread to keep going, just snip that off and tie it and then rethread and keep going. All right, now make sure you get all the stuffing out of the way before you pinch this shut to sew it. I'll quickly sew this guy up. And I'm gonna sew it the same way I did the rest of it, the in and out like that. This part, nobody's even gonna see because this is gonna be in the pot, so you really don't have to worry about it. Looking perfect. You just want to try and make sure you line it up right. Keep the stuffing in there. All right. And then when you get to the end, take your scissors and you can cut it off up here. I always try and cut it if you can. Make sure you cut it where you have enough left to tie. When the strings are really short, it's hard to tie it. You don't have to try a super tight knot. It's not going to be leaking out. I'm just going to do a couple little ties there. And then you take your scissors and you're gonna trim those little tails off close to the knot. Not so close that the knot's gonna come undone, but you could trim it a little bit. So let's snip there, get these extra strings out of the way. Okay, now we're gonna add those little spikes to the cactuses. And since we're not gonna put real spikes in it, we're going to use these little beads I gave you. So this is where you're gonna need, if you have something like, you could use the tip of a pencil, but if you have a toothpick, that'll help, and a little bit of glue. And you're gonna pour some of these beads out into, if you have a lid like this is a little plastic lid, you could use that. And there is no special way to do this. This is entirely up to you. If you look at a cactus, you see there's no certain pattern on there. They're kind of, sometimes they've got lines of them. You can do them that way if you want, but you can do it. They look pretty neat when they're just little random dots. So you're just gonna put a little dot of glue on, and then you're gonna put one of your little beads on. It might even be helpful to pick it up like that. So you're just gonna put them all over. I'm using a tacky glue here. It's gonna dry clear. Make sure you do a glue that's gonna dry clear. If you're having a hard time, look, I'm just using a little glue to pick them up. And you're just gonna continue. And what you're gonna have to do is do one side of your cactus and let it dry, and then you'll do your other side. It dries pretty quick. These little guys will stay on there pretty good. You should have enough to easily cover both sides. Think about though, I mean, look at how many you have and think about how many, if you do them all really close together, you might run out of beads before you get your whole cactus covered. I'll do a couple more. All right, then once you get all of your beads done on both sides, your spikes on. Okay, this is gonna take some time. You've gotta just get some nice, relaxing. That's what I find the sewing is kind of a nice thing to do. Maybe put on some music and do your sewing, and this is the same thing. It's just gonna take some patience and some quiet time. Okay, get them on. All right, so we'll let those guys dry, and once all your beads are on and dried is when you're going to add your little cactus flower. If you want, you don't have to. I give you all a little pink cactus flower. The way to attach this is same way. You're just going to decide where you want it, put a little dab of glue, no more sewing, all the sewing's done, and then add, I'm going to put it right out on the end here, and let it dry. So when you get to the point where you've got all your beads on your flower attached, you're going to get something that looks kind of like this. We've got on both sides. I did beads all over on both sides. Remember, this part's going to go in the pot, so you don't have to really worry about putting the beads all the way down to the bottom. So at this point, you're going to take your pot and your stones. I'm going to bring this over. All the pots you're going to have are going to be a little bit different. And you're going to take your bag of stones. And I found the easiest way to do this is to pour some in. And then I probably filled it about halfway, a little bit more than halfway. Okay, if you find your bag of stones look a little dirty, this is something you can wash them off and dry them. Put them in a strainer and let them dry. Kind of looks a little deserty. And then you're going to put your cactus in there when you get about halfway and hold it. This might be good if you have someone to help you do this. And then while it's in there a little bit, you're going to put enough rocks on either side to help it stand up. Put a little bit here, a little bit here. It's a little bit neater than sand. It should help it stand pretty good. All right. And if you find you're having a hard time getting it to stand up, just put them in there a little deeper. And there you go. That's it. So I hope you guys have fun. Send me some pictures. Let me know how your cactuses came out and keep an eye out for next month's. Bye now.